All right. Greetings. Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. What's going on, guys? I feel like my microphone is really high. Put it here. I'll put it here. What's up, people? How you doing? Welcome back to Black Bear News, where everything is connected. I think I already said that, but we are connected 2 times on Rockfin and on YouTube. What's up, Poppy Davis? How you doing? Poppy is watching on Rockfin. Few folks coming into Rockfin. Please join me on Rockfin, ROKFIN.com, where all the rockers are hanging out. But yes, good to see y'all. Greetings and salutations. Osama says Jimmy Dore is cursing madly on Rockfin. I think he curses madly kind of everywhere he goes. I think that's just... Oh, with Nico. I saw that. I watched that interview. It's pretty good. But you know I'm a fan. Boulder Up Lamppost, what's up? Poppy Davis, Rockfin is up. Kiro Hikes, what's up? Osama, Realize, Interglacial Optimist, Max Sarge. Let's get into it. Bear with me. I've kind of changed my studio thing around, or my streaming thing around, so I'm kind of getting used to it. Poppy says something about a massive mountain collapse in BC. Well, I got some conflicting news about that, and that's kind of what I wanted to start out with. Let's see. Oh, first of all, let me do this. Apologies. First of all, I want to start out with this from December 10th. Climate change means more landslides in the future, scientists say. There was a slope failure at Beach Road December 2nd that left 2 residents missing. Is at once tragic and unexpected, and also not at all surprising for Southeast Alaska, this is in Alaska, not British Columbia, of course. Somebody sent me something about Alaska, more so about Alaska. Oh, you know what? I'm on the wrong one. I think I'm supposed to be on this one. Here we go. Rainier winters is likely to increase the frequency of slides in the future. Statewide, there's a lack of data and resources available to help municipalities incorporate slope stability. Slopes. Until recently, the southeast of Alaska was covered with glaciers. Deglaciation left behind the steep, stunning peaks that characterize the region's landscape. The area is also a rainforest, a climate with weather systems coming through where there's so much rain. In Sitka in 2015, a landslide killed 3 after it tore through a neighborhood. The recent weather event, which dumped rain on Southeast during an already wet year, triggered landslides throughout the region. I don't think anyone had any idea that the property was anything but geologically safe. What a wake-up call, said former Mayor Fred Shields. Elected in 1988, Shields oversaw the construction of Beach Road and the sale of roughly half of the properties in the borough subdivision. Anytime you're digging into terrain and slopes and changing the course of nature, that can have impacts on drainage, then that has impacts on the geology of where you're building and working. Again, humans doing all that they can to change their surroundings and acting surprised when it happens in unexpected ways. Yeah. Give me 1 second. I'm going to go back here. So is there anybody got a link for something that happened in British Columbia? Yes, Roscommon deglaciation may also be lessening the weight on tectonic plates and leading to more earthquakes and volcanic activity along the ring of fire. Right. And that actually leads right into the next thing I wanted to cover. Today, Kilauea volcano erupts on Hawaii's Big Island. The Kilauea volcano on Hawaii's Big Island erupted and shot a steam cloud into the atmosphere that lasted about an hour. An official with the National Weather Service said early Monday. The eruption began late Sunday within the Halemaumau crater. The U.S. Geological Survey said the volcano is located within Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Give me 1 second. Tom Burchard, a senior forecaster with the National Weather Service in Hawaii, said a new lava flow interacted with a pool of water inside the crater, and that led to a short-lived but fairly vigorous eruption. All the water evaporated out of the lake, and a steam cloud shot up about 30,000 feet into the atmosphere. View from the western rim of the Kilauea caldera, lava is erupting from the fissure and northwest wall of the Halemaumau crater and cascading into the deepest part of the crater, which has been occupied by a water lake. Let's watch this. That is pretty, if not frightening at the same time. An advisory was issued by the National Weather Service in Honolulu warning of fallen ash from a volcano. The volcano, excessive exposure to ash is an ion respiratory irritant. By 1 a.m., USGS officials told Hawaii News Now that there were reported lava fountains shooting about 165 feet into the sky. Crikeys. A magnitude 4.4 earthquake hit about an hour after the volcano began erupting. The USGS said it received more than 500 reports of people who felt the earthquake, but significant damage to buildings or structures was not expected. Kilauea erupted in 2018, destroying more than 700 homes and spewing enough lava to fill 320,000 Olympic-sized swimming pools. An area more than half the size of Manhattan was buried in up to 80 feet of now hardened lava. The lava flowed over the course of 4 months. Let's watch one more video, shall we?
It's just amazing, you guys. I just can't even explain. Yes, this is Hawaii Volcanoes National Park at the Kilauea Overlook. Oh, look at Pele's face right there. Boom, right there. Billy's face. Can't be missed. I'm telling you guys. Yeah, unfortunately we weren't able to show you guys the moon bowls. It just doesn't show up on the phone.
Again, volcanoes, eruptions, earthquakes, tectonic movements of the planet may or may not be connected to climate change. Many think yes. I mean, a lot of people would see this as just something that the Earth does, and that's true. But also, the Earth is warming, so as the Earth warms, things start to shift around, right? Human Love Solidarity said Walmart just put their guillotines on sale, $599. Got stimulus? That's funny. Lightning Rod says ice is the binder for tundra. Basil Peterson, Yellowstone is a caldera indeed. What's up, people on Rockfin? Kevin Shanholzer. Urban Hermit. Poppy Davis, Jacob Gordon. And Osama are all on Rockfin. We got 10 watching on Rockfin. Lovely. Keep it up, guys. Thanks for coming. Human Love Solidarity says lack of ice can move geoplates on planet. Sure. Well, isn't it, I mean, we've seen that in past geological eras, right? Where there was an increase in temperature, there was an increase in volcanic activity, etc. Oh yes, happy solstice. Thank you, Basil Peterson. I forgot to say that too. Happy solstice, y'all. All right, let's Kuro Hikes. DIY guillotine videos popping up on Pinterest. Yeah, you know, nobody really wants it to come. I mean, maybe some people, but I don't really want it to come to that personally. But hopefully people can get with the idea that we can, we can be a little bit rougher on those people in power or pressure them a little more. Right. Let's stop with all the nicey nices, and let's get to pressuring people in all kinds of ways before, before things get really ugly. Moving on. This was retweeted by Jim Massa. By the way, guys, Jim Massa is going to be a guest tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to redo the interview with Jim Massa. I think I figured out the audio bugs. And sorely upset, bummed out, whatever you want to call it, that the last interview with him, not a lot of people could hear it. So I think we fixed it. I think we fixed what's going on. So Jim Massa is going to be here tomorrow at the regular time of 11 a.m. Yes, regular time of 11 a.m. We're going to redo it with better audio, and we can all hear Jim and what he has to say, because what he has to say is quite important. So anyways, Paul Paul Dawson tweets, the science cannot be any clearer on this. Fossil fuels must be left in the ground. But he links to an article from last year. Says climate change, oil industry argues for maximum production levels. And why? How are they arguing for maximum production levels? Why? Because we're going to need to go green, guys. So we're going to need all the oil we can get to go green. Hold on, let's keep going. The UK's oil and gas industry has said the best response to tackling greenhouse gas emissions, get this, is to continue production at maximum levels. Yeah. Oil and gas UK's roadmap to 2035, which I guess is when we're supposed to go net zero or something like that. Roadmap to 2035 argued consumption would remain above the levels they could produce. So guys, I mean, we're going to have consumers and we got to produce. It said maintaining output at 1.1 million barrels per day would reduce the need to import fossil fuels. Okay. Environmental campaigners WWF Scotland, or World Wildlife Fund Scotland, said the industry needed to get serious about tackling climate change. Scottish Green MSP, Mark Ruskell, the party's energy spokesman, said the industry was putting its own interests ahead of our survival. Yeah. The science cannot be any clearer on this, he said. Fossil fuels must be left in the ground. Despite efforts to reduce consumption of oil and gas, the industry report predicted UK demand in 2035, as outlined by the Committee on Climate Change, would still be significantly more than the UK could produce. Interesting, considering all the messaging from the UK that we're lowering our emissions and our fossil fuel use. Our renewables are going up, and so is our economy. Seem to be hearing two conflicting messages about what's really happening as far as the energy consumption and or emissions in the UK. But, we'll just put that aside for now and keep going. Despite efforts to reduce consumption of oil and gas, I think we already read that, even after a rapid drop in demand in the years to 2050, they're just, predicting this. It's funny, anyways. Forecast to be half the current consumption level. So that's what they're forecasting for 2050, half of the consumption level. That's also interesting because the UK has declared a climate emergency and declared they're one of the countries that's like, we're going net zero by 2050. People, good people of the British Isles and beyond, forecast to be half the current consumption level. The UK would still only be able to produce 30% of the total. So yep, that it still involves a lot of burning, shipping, producing, emissions, etc. I mean, we shall see, but again, promises, all the nice words, and kind of piggybacking on the story about all the open wells that I read yesterday. I mean, this is just, more evidence of what the fossil fuel industry and our consumption of fossil fuels. It's hard to blame must be spread all over the place. But yes, we've been sold this lifestyle that's very fossil fuel rich, very fossil fuel dependent. So, two two things need to happen simultaneously, which is the fossil fuel industry needs to be heavily curtailed in whatever ways that can happen, and our consumption and our reliance on fossil fuels needs to be heavily curtailed, however that can happen. So you can't have one without the other. Because golly gee, there's going to be a lot of people out there in the coming months and years. I predict there's going to be a lot of people out there going like, oh, but if you really bring down fossil fuel consumption, people are going to be impacted. Jobs are going to be lost. People will suffer. People won't be able to have their high standard of living. People will have, you're telling people that they'll have to do with less. Oh, how dare you? Right? Yeah, there's going to be a lot of like pearl clutching and outrage and, oh my God, how could you do this? So we need to obviously let people understand. And even all the libertarians, even the civil libertarians, even the people that are like the truthers and the conspiracy theorists, and the Great Reset people and the Agenda 21 people and the Agenda 2030 people, all those people are like, even those people are throwing up the whole like, well, you mean you're going to take away cars from people? You mean you're going to limit, you mean people are going to have to limit how much they consume? You mean people are going to have, I'll go into more of that later, but the people that are the Agenda 2030 people and the Great Reset people that are talking about it, I think they're concerned about a top-down or government style authoritarian, totalitarian approach to this. The problem is that climate change is very, very real. So unless you get a whole lot of people to agree to do this on their own, right? So we're getting into the murky areas of free will here. I don't want to live in an authoritarian society myself, or to live in a totalitarian world myself. I prefer not to do that. But however, we're going to have to do something. Something must be done. So just romping around the globe and destroying the globe for our own consumption, our own, all the needs that, the things that we think we all need to stay alive. We're going to have to really think very long and hard about what it is we need to actually live on this planet. So anyways, I'm all for civil libertarianism on some levels, on many levels, but there's got to be a kind of a conversation around that. Kiro Hikes, if you went local vegan and lived outside with running water or electricity, you are still producing 2 times the 2.5 tons of carbon recommended. Why is that? How would that be so? Just because of the running water and the electricity? Anyways, went down a little alleyway there, but we'll come back around. But let's get back to this article from Osama. The ocean floor is spewing methane due to abandoned oil and gas wells. Again, this is from today, from Truth Out. A lot of wreckage from the oil industry that needs to be cleaned up. How are we going to do that? We're going to have some kind of organized just like the nuclear industry or the nuclear reactors that have to be dealt with. We're going to have some kind of organized reaction to this. People are not going to do this out of their own, with people with no money or no resources are not going to be able to fix this problem. So we're probably going to have to do what we can while we still have some kind of organized society. I know it's a pretty big ask on my part. Out on the deck of a research boat, Tara Yakovich, looked out to the water in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. The seascape is peppered with lights. Every light is part of an offshore oil or gas platform. Offshore platforms can vary greatly in size. Some are as big as multi-storied buildings, while others resemble small but very tall rooms. Yeah, so this is basically something that I read the other day. This is basically word for word what I read the other day. So I'm not going to read the whole thing, but just revisiting the idea that we are we're propping up the oil industry for financial reasons, of course, for industrial civilization reasons, but you know, we all rely on these things to live our good time partying life, right? We're having a big old party courtesy of fossil fuels. Let's move on to this tweet from Go Green, and it pretty much sums it up. I mean, we're all aware of the Belt and Road Initiative and what a threat to the planet it is. We'll look a little bit at that. But this is just a pretty good summation of this Belt and Road Initiative. China has embarked on a death sentence of what is left of world biodiversity, undoing renewable energy progress. Right? China's Belt and Road Initiative threatens to pave the planet. China is laying plans for trillions of dollars of new ports, rail lines, and roads across the globe. This is actually from last year as well, December 16th, 2019. The Belt and Road Initiative is so enormous that its impacts could erode the gains that China and other countries have made in recent years in fighting climate change. The Belt and Road Initiative is part of China's larger effort to project its own institutions as alternatives to the Western-led order represented by the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund. Some see the initiative as a 21st century riposte to the Marshall Plan, their version of the post-World War II American campaign to finance infrastructure and maintain a U.S. military presence in parts of Europe that were not under Soviet control and all over the rest of the world as well. The BRI is deeply rooted in Chinese politics. Since the 1990s, China's economic boom has been driven in part by state-financed investments in domestic infrastructure. Chinese engineers have built the world's largest high-speed rail network, with over 15,000 miles of dedicated track completed since 2008. But as the Chinese economy slows, and as Beijing and Washington square off in a bitter trade war, China's ruling Communist Party is pursuing overseas infrastructure projects as a way to keep domestic business churning. It's just the same thing over and over. We need growth. We need economic growth and strength and power. We need more because they're going to get more before we get more, and we need more before they get more. It would be difficult to overestimate the BRI's scale. The project, which launched in 2013, could end up involving as many as 125 countries. and costing $8 trillion by 2049. Right before they're going to go to net zero there in 2060. Top Chinese officials have described it as a vast network of roads, rail lines, and maritime shipping routes that will radiate outward from China's land and sea borders like a spider web. It will eventually include oil and gas pipelines in Myanmar, Russia, and Kazakhstan, highways in Pakistan, a railroad in Kenya, hydropower dams in Cameroon and Zambia, and dozens of other projects across Asia, Africa, and Europe. And meanwhile, we'll just fish all the remaining fish out of the seas while we're at it. The Belt and Road Initiative is so enormous that its impacts could erode the gains that China and other countries have made in recent years. China has significantly tightened its domestic environmental laws since the 1990s, and it says that the BRI will hew to the same rules. Yet many Chinese companies apply weaker environmental standards abroad than they do at home. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. This is, using the same model that the U.S. has used to export its businesses outside of its, tighter environmental regulations at home, but move all the businesses somewhere else so you can just do what you want or do what you will. Many conservation experts are skeptical about Beijing's assurances. William Lawrence, an authority on the BRI at James Cook University in Australia, wrote that the project is part of a global tsunami of infrastructure development that is mostly driven by China. He warns that it threatens to open a Pandora's box of environmental crises, including large-scale deforestation, habitat fragmentation, wildlife poaching, water pollution, and greenhouse gas emissions. The Belt and Road Initiative is a signature of the age of Xi Jinping, the country's most powerful leader since Mao Zedong. He launched it in the year after coming to power and has called it the project of the century, quote unquote. The BRI is designed to speed the movement of goods to and from China while boosting investments by state-affiliated companies in steel plants, coal-fired power stations, and other markers of Beijing's expanding industrial footprint. China also plans to diversify its energy sources and reduce its need to move oil through geopolitical hotspots like the Persian Gulf and South China Sea. When China invests in so-called frontier economies like Malaysia's, the parameters of its infrastructure projects are often fixed once they have been financed and approved, said Alex Lechner, a landscape ecologist at the University of Nottingham's Malaysia campus who studies the BRI. Millions of dollars have been invested and the environment becomes an obstacle to be overcome, he told me. That may be true for Setiu, where the railroad company's Chinese contractor has already built a giant factory in the swamp. Even Tenggu has not been told where the tracks will go or whether the contractor plans to do environmental mitigation in the area. They're talking about a rail line that they're building in Malaysia called the East Coast Rail Link. That will allow cargo to move from the capital, Kuala Lumpur, towards Kuantan, an eastern port city on the South China Sea. When protected areas are bisected by infrastructure projects, they tend to be vulnerable to secondary threats like poaching and illegal logging. Wow. This is the Kuantan Industrial Park, dominated by Chinese companies. If y'all can see that. Officials in Beijing sometimes describe the Belt and Road Initiative as a modern variation on the ancient Silk Road. The trade routes that linked merchant ships from Imperial China to the outside world, the BRI will embody the Silk Road spirit. The Chinese government said in a 2015 mission statement reflecting the common ideals and pursuit of human societies. It said, "It is a positive endeavor to seek new models of international cooperation and global governance and will inject new positive energy into world peace and development." Okie doke. Or perhaps not. Starts the next paragraph. Many economists and development experts say that China is essentially offering cheap infrastructure loans to poorer countries as a type of political coercion. Oh. Remember the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman? This is basically the same blueprint that the U.S. did with the Marshall Plan and other type of ideas. You go into a poor country that has resources that you want, you give them infrastructure, you give them loans, you make them economically wedded to you, you extort them for their resources, you get them in debt, then you just control the whole country. And if a socialist or political leader comes up from the people and says this won't happen anymore, then you foment a revolution, or take out that leader, put in your own leader, etc., etc., etc. President Xi has denied that the BRI is a vehicle for political coercion or the expansion of the Chinese influence. Let me go back here. Let me go back to this paragraph about economic coercion. One glaring example is a Sri Lankan port that a state-owned Chinese firm plowed money into despite clear signs that the local government could never afford it. China recently took over the port, which happens to be strategically placed near India, a geopolitical rival, as debt collateral. The move prompted criticism that Beijing was engaging in a textbook example of debt trap diplomacy, which was laid out again in the book Confessions of an Economic Hitman. Evaluating the environmental merits of the BRI project or BRI projects is tricky because many of them are shrouded in secrecy, propaganda, and endless bureaucracy. President Xi has said he is committed to pursuing BRI projects that support green, low carbon, circular, and sustainable development. Okay, all the good words, thank you. Yet, while China has made strides recently to flatten its greenhouse gas emissions, some climate experts fear that the BRI's sheer size will inevitably boost resource extraction and fossil fuel consumption. And you can just go ahead and say, of course it will. For example, the BRI will intensify dependence on fossil fuels by facilitating the shipment of oil and gas and financing the construction of new coal-fired power plants. Right, coal. Coming up all over the quote-unquote developing world. Africa, Middle East, India, China, building coal plants as we speak. Such concerns are especially acute in Southeast Asia, a region with exceptional biodiversity, a growing population, and plans to build hundreds of coal-fired power plants by 2030. How's that net zero looking? How's that net zero by 2050 looking? Anyways, that's all I'm going to read of that. I just wanted to give you guys a little bit of an overview. I think many people are aware of this. already if you weren't aware of it. Perhaps you are a little more now. But yes, this is just, there are plans afoot. Big plans afoot for destroying the planet. All while all the governments of the planet, of the world, are saying things like net zero by 2050 or net zero by 2060. There's a conflict and a disconnect between these competing things that are happening, which are economic expansion and somehow lowering your carbon footprint or lowering your emissions. Many would say that it's mutually exclusive. Richard Monroe says coal makes a great stocking stuffer. Indeed it does. What's up, my Rockfin people? Jacob Gordon says YouTube just crapped out on me. Yeah, so we got people watching on Rockfin. Thank you. Scott Andrews is on Rockfin. Kevin Shanholzer says a massive upfront injection of fossil fuels is required to transition to green infrastructure. Tell me about it. Urban Hermit says accelerationism. Urban Hermit also says, yay, audible Jim Massa. Right, so tomorrow we will have an audible Jim Massa back in the studio. Virtually back in the studio. And we will be able to talk to Jim and to hear him and have a conversation with Jim. Right. Realize says China leads the world in sustainable energy, quote unquote, and they are the West's production plant. Ross Cobbin says, pretty much party like it's 1999. Keith Hayes asks, is giving coal for Christmas carbon neutral? Yeah. Let's move on from that cheery news about so Zach Labe tweeted this. Was it today? It was today. Recent weather conditions have contributed to substantial growth in the extent of Arctic sea ice cover. Extent is not volume, by the way. So we're going back up an extent, so that's good. The outer edges of the Arctic Ocean drive variability this time of year. Someone asked, is this really good news? Someone else asked, actually, it's like seeing that you're about to be run over by a Fiat 500 rather than a Mack truck. But then says, we are losing the last remaining multi-year ice in the Beaufort Gyre as we speak. Multi-year ice being much more important than, the ice that is forming is rotten ice. Much extent of rotten ice next summer will go fast. And someone else tweets for good measure. Here's the U.S. Drought Monitor, December 1st, 2020. Looking pretty droughty. No doubty. So I want to read this. I want to kind of Actually, maybe I'll do this tomorrow. No, I can't do it tomorrow. All right, we're gonna go a little bit long today, guys. This is something that This is something that the Agenda 2030ers or the Great Resetters. And again, I'm not in any way an enemy of the Agenda 2030ers or the Great Resetters. I find the whole idea and conversation extremely interesting, but this is from the World Economic Forum. And this particular article has a lot of people concerned about some kind of totalitarian future. Here's how life could change in my city by the year 2030. Welcome to the year 2030. Welcome to my city, or should I say our city. I don't own anything. I don't own a car. I don't own a house. I don't own any appliances or any clothes. It might seem odd to you, but it makes perfect sense for us in this city. Everything you considered a product has now become a service. We have access to transportation, accommodation, food, and all the things we need in our daily lives. One by one, all of these things became free, so it ended up not making sense for us to own much. Sounds slightly strange, but also some of those things sound slightly cool, some slightly strange. First, communication became digitized and free to everyone. Then, when clean energy became free, things started to move quickly. This sounds extremely utopian, by the way, because this is all happening in 10 years. Anyways, transportation dropped dramatically in price. It made no sense for us to own cars anymore because we could call a driverless vehicle or a flying car for longer journeys within minutes. We started transporting ourselves in a much more organized and coordinated way when public transport became easier, quicker, and more convenient than the car. Now I can hardly believe that we accepted congestion and traffic jams, not to mention the air pollution from combustion engines. What were we thinking? Sometimes I use my bike when I go out to see some friends. I enjoy the exercise and the ride. It kind of gets the soul to come along on the journey. Funny how some things seem never to lose their excitement. Walking, biking, cooking, drawing, or growing plants. It makes perfect sense and reminds us of how our culture emerged out of a close relationship with nature. Environmental problems seem far away. In our city, we don't pay rent because someone else is using our free space whenever we do not need it. My living room is used for business meetings when I'm not there. Okay. I really don't understand how that actually works, but whatever. That actually kind of doesn't even really make sense, but we'll just move on. Once in a while, I would choose to cook for myself. It is easy. The necessary kitchen equipment is delivered at my door within minutes. That also doesn't really make any sense, but whatever. Since transport became free, we stopped having all these things stuffed into our home. Why keep a pasta maker and a crepe cooker crammed into our cupboards? We can just order them when we need them. This also made the breakthrough of a circular economy easier. When products are turned into services, no one has an interest in things with a short lifespan. Everything is designed for durability, repairability, and recyclability. This is extremely utopian. The materials are flowing more quickly in our economy and can be transformed to new products pretty easily. Environmental problems seem far away since we only use clean energy and clean production methods. Okie dokie. The air is clean, the water is clean, and nobody would dare touch the protected areas of nature because they constitute such value to our well-being. In the cities, we have plenty of green space and plants and trees all over. I still do not understand why in the past we filled all free spots in the city with concrete. That's fair. There's nothing wrong with that. The death of shopping. Shopping, I can't remember what that is. For most of us, it has been turned into choosing things to use. Sometimes I find this fun, and sometimes I just want the algorithm to do it for me. Okay. Again, yeah, there's a lot of like tech utopianism going on here. So I understand why people might see this as alarm or flag raising. It knows my taste better than I do by now, the algorithm. When AI and robots took over so much of our work, we suddenly had time to eat well, sleep well, and spend time with other people. The concept of rush hour makes no sense anymore, since the work that we can do can be done at any time. I don't really know if I could call it work anymore. It's more like thinking time, creation time, and development time. For a while, everything was turned into entertainment, and people did not want to bother themselves with difficult issues. It was only at the last minute that we found out how to use all these new technologies for better purposes than just killing time. And then it gets into a really interesting part of this article. They live different kinds of lives outside of the city. My biggest concern is all the people who do not live in our city, those we lost on the way. Those who decided that it became too much, all this technology. Those who felt obsolete and useless when robots and AI took over big parts of our jobs. I wonder what happened to those people. Where did they go? What do they do? How do they live? Those who got upset with the political system and turned against it. They live different kinds of lives outside of the city. Some have formed little self-supplying communities. Others just stayed in the empty and abandoned houses in small 19th century villages. Sounds pretty great to me. Once in a while, I get annoyed about the fact that I have no real privacy. Nowhere I can go and not be registered. I know that somewhere everything I do, think, and dream of is recorded. I just hope that somebody will use it, that nobody will use it against me. Probably something that people... The same fear that people have right now at this immediate moment. All in all, life is a good life, much better than the path we are on, where it became so clear that we could not continue with the same model of growth. We had all these terrible things happening: lifestyle diseases, climate change, the refugee crisis, environmental degradation, completely congested cities, water pollution, air pollution, social unrest, and unemployment. We lost way too many people before we realized that we could do things differently. Okay. And then there's an author's note. Some people have read this blog as my utopia or dream of the future. It is not. It is a scenario showing where we could be heading, for better or for worse. I wrote this piece to start a discussion about some of the pros and cons of the current technological development. When we are dealing with the future, it is not enough to work with reports. We should start discussions in many new ways. This is the intention of this piece. So, and that is also the intention of this channel, or one of the intentions, not the only intention, but one of the intentions. And also the intention of, my thoughts on like what it could be that we could do to possibly survive in the future. And, the clear thing is that obviously if nothing changes on our end, things are going to be changed for us, right? Things are not going to be very fun for us. Things are not going to be very fun or very nice for a lot of people if we don't make some wholesale changes, not some, it's adjusting around the edges. I don't even know about this idea of what a utopian future could look like. The idea that a lot of people would reject this is also very true, but where in there can we find some kind of truth or some kind of like solid idea about what it is we're going to have to do going forward? Ross Cobbin says the author is drinking some highly spiked Kool-Aid. Maybe so. Realize says the empire self-destructs. Anthony Davis says, we will likely not survive. Those who remain will be the 1%, and all of us will simply vanish off into the deep. Yeah, I don't, even if this is a possible blueprint for the future. You know, the whole like we don't do growth anymore, you know, idea is going to be the thing that's going to stop the powers that be from allowing something like this to happen, right? You know, what was it somebody tweeted the other day? Oh, we can't have Medicare for all because, so many people would lose their jobs. To every great idea out there, or it doesn't even have to be great, just good, solid, like common sense idea, like everybody should have health care. There's going to be people that are going to throw up but how could you do that? You know, the thing we have right now is the best thing that we have, the best thing that we could be doing. It's not perfect, but, you know, a lot of people depend on the system and the way that things are running right now in order to live. So don't change that because you might cause people to be a little uncomfortable. Especially, you know, those pharmaceutical and health insurance corporations. Don't want to make things uncomfortable for them. Certainly not. Jacob Gordon says shrink growth, indeed. Brian Melt, the Empire Strikes Oil. That's good. Oh, Raza, that is hilarious. Can't even repeat that joke, but that's funny. Right. Richard Monroe, Medicare uses insurance companies now. Right. Well, they've already chipped away at Medicare a little bit by giving you Medicare Advantage, right? So, you can pay a little more and get some better care. Oh. Well, we'll just slowly take away the things you get under regular Medicare, but you can pay a little more and get those things that you used to get if you only have Medicare Advantage, right? Poppy Davis, go work for Medicare. They're going to need you, right? Medicare for all. Exactly. I mean, it's not like the health insurance or the health industry is going to go away completely. Many people are going to have to still work in the health industry if we have Medicare for all. You just might not have the job that you have now. Maybe if you work in health insurance, maybe you're going to have to get another job. Oh, the horror. Guile Smith, can't wait for that $600 worth of hopium. What's up, Schultz 100? How you doing? Thanks. I'm glad you like that background. Thank you. Yeah, nowhere in this article did she talk about, you know, people decided that it was a good idea not to have so many children. I don't know. None of that was talked about. Nothing in the article said anything about the fact that we don't have rich people anymore. The idea of being super wealthy just doesn't even come into our minds anymore. Speaking of $600 worth of hopium, here's Nancy Pelosi telling you, you're going to take this $600 and you're going to like it. You're going to like it.
In the legislation, direct payments, which were not in the Republican bill, to America's working families. I would like them been bigger, but they are significant, and they will be going out soon. We also have in the legislation.
She called them significant. $600, significant. I mean, in the first CARES Act, they were proposing so much more money. There were people saying, how about $2,000 a month? How about a UBI? Nah, $1,200 I think is good, like one check. I think that's good. $600, I think it's pretty significant. I think it's good. I think it's fine. She said she wishes it could have been more. Really? How hard did she wish that? Was she really wishing? Was she really wishing that hard? Because I think that at one time, Trump had a standalone offer for just a $1,200 stimulus check. This was like 2 months ago. She said he wants to send out a check with his name on it. Ain't gonna happen. Oh. She just didn't want Trump to get a win, or she just didn't want people to get any money. Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe it's the same thing. Caitlin Johnson, I read a really good article from Caitlin Johnson today, or this was yesterday, but I didn't have a chance to read it yesterday. Good tweet from Caitlin Johnson about the vitriol that Jimmy Dore is receiving for his idea about Medicare for all, or pushing it, force the vote. By the way, that the petition is pinned to the top of my profile. If you go to my Twitter profile, you can find that link for the petition for force the vote. Please go there and sign the petition. If you want to. I did. They're shitting on Jimmy because he's made it clear that he, A, has the power to single-handedly initiate a political push in the U.S. progressive movement. How dare he? He's not even a politician. He's just a podcaster. And B, cannot be controlled. It kind of sounds also super interesting. Golly, man, there's been some interesting stuff said around. I mean, people are calling Jimmy Dore an alcoholic and a white supremacist. Oh my God, Breonna Joy Gray is hanging out with white people who haven't got rid of their white supremacy. Oh my God. This like bullshit from Nomiki Konst. Oh my God. She tweets out, why are rich white dudes supported by an audience 87% male, under 45 years old? Does she even know this about his audience? Under 45 years old, dictating our leftist political discourse. Oh my God, how dare he? How dare a white guy who has a who has a YouTube show use his power and influence to help poor people get Medicare? How dare he push politicians who have privilege and standing and political power? How dare he push politicians to do something for poor people, this rich white guy? I had to retweet this and say, you sound like every mainstream media TV analyst smearing Bernie Sanders. Do you even hear yourself? This is exactly the stuff they said about Bernie Sanders. This bullshit, like super racist and sexist bullshit. Nomiki Konst, racist and sexist. Nomiki Konst. This is racist and sexist. Bullshit about somebody who wants to help poor people, who don't have. He wants to do something to help people that have no power. Golly gee. Somebody who wants to be an ally to people who have no power, or more importantly, don't have any health care. He's being a voice for the underrepresented. But you want to come along with your racism and your sexism and smear him. Thanks, Nomiki Konst. Good job. I can't be a sexist because I'm a woman. Okay. If you say so, nobody agrees with you. I don't. And nobody cares. I don't. Man, I had a good article here and I don't know where it went. Dang it, dang it, dang it. Hate when that happens. What happened to my article? That really sucks. I really hate when they just zero out an article of mine. Zeroing out 2 articles of mine. Dang it. Okay, hold on one second. Maybe if I just redo it. I don't know. The Huffington Post doesn't want me to read in any of their articles today, I guess. Give me 1 second, guys. Oh, dang it. Hold on 1 second. Hold on. I'm going to get these articles. Or maybe not. Maybe I won't get them. Alrighty. My apologies. Anyways, yeah, Nomiki Konst just like has revealed herself to be a most terrible person. And it's too bad. Anyways, let's just do a little recap from a CIA agent who's talking freely. This is from Juan Passarelli, excuse me. It's amazing to see an ex-CIA agent talking freely about the covert wars and psyops they constantly use. We're talking about Russia. I was actually going to cover this, Mitt Romney is saying that the Russians can, this is an article in Huffington Post today. Mitt Romney, article in Huffington Post, says, the Russians can take over our electricity grid and our water pipelines. They're coming. This was a story that was like 3 years ago, when Russiagate was like a thing, and the Washington Post was like, put out a story saying that, the Russians were coming to hack our electricity. I think, Rachel Maddow even said, they're going to hack our electricity grids and they're going to take us over. Oh my God, here they come, the Russians. And then they like had to retract that story, and it was just a bunch of stupid shit anyways. But then, Mitt Romney comes out and says the same things again. Oh, here comes Russia. They're going to hack us again. They're going to hack our infrastructure. Oh my God, beware. What are we going to do? Anyways, let's watch this.
There are other functions, however, some of them more legitimate than others. One is to run secret wars, the covert action that's written and talked about so much, like what's happening in Nicaragua today from Honduras. Another thing is to disseminate propaganda to influence people's minds, and this is a major function of the CIA. And unfortunately, of course, it overlaps into the gathering of information. You have contact with a journalist, you will give him true stories, you'll get information from him, you'll also give him false stories.
Did you buy his confidence with true stories?
You buy his confidence and set him up. We've seen this happen recently with Jack Anderson, for example, who has his intelligence sources, and he has also admitted that he's been set up by them. Every fifth story just simply being false. You also work on their human vulnerabilities to recruit them in a classic sense, to make them your agent so that you can control what they do, so you don't have to set them up sort of, by putting one over on them. So you can say, here, plant this one next Tuesday.
Can you do this with responsible reporters?
Yes, the Church Committee brought it out in 1975, and then Woodward and Bernstein put an article in Rolling Stone a couple of years later. 400 journalists cooperating with the CIA, including some of the biggest names in the business, to consciously introduce the stories into the press.
Well, give me a concrete example of how you use the press this way, how a false story is planted and how you got it published.
Well, for example, in my war, the Angola War that I helped to manage, 1/3 of my staff was propaganda. Ironically, it's called covert action inside the CIA. Outside, that means the violent part. I had propagandists all over the world, principally in London, Kinshasa, and Zambia. We would take stories which we would write, and put them in the Zambia Times, and then pull them out and send them to a journalist on our payroll in Europe. But his cover story, you see, would be that he'd gotten them from his stringer in Lusaka, who had gotten them from the Zambia Times. We had the complicity of the government of Zambia, Kenneth Kaunda, if you will, to put these false stories into his newspapers. But after that point, the journalists, Reuters and AFP, the management was not witting of it. Now, our contact man in Europe was, and we pumped just dozens of stories about Cuban atrocities, Cuban rapists. In one case, we had the Cuban rapists caught and tried by the Ovimbundu maidens who had been their victims, and then we ran photographs that made almost every newspaper in the country of the Cubans being executed by the Ovimbundu women who supposedly had been their victims.
These were fake photos?
Oh, absolutely. We didn't know of one single atrocity committed by the Cubans. It was pure, raw, false propaganda to create an illusion of communists, you know, eating babies for breakfast and that sort of totally false propaganda.
There you go. Admissions of a CIA agent. I mean, all of this is old news. Church committee, Operation Mockingbird, right. So, you know, what you do is you just do one better and you just make the CIA agents the news reporters, right? Like Anderson Cooper is a CIA agent, basically. So, this is funny. Funny tweet by BBC News. How should you talk to friends and relatives who believe conspiracy theories? And then I had to quote this and say, how do you talk to friends who believe propaganda from mainstream news outlets? There, I fixed it for you. You know, guys, I think that's about it. I'm going to cover some more tomorrow. That's about all I got today. Just saying what's up to my people on Rockfin. What's up? What's up? What's up? I don't know. I saw Sam Bloom turn off the JavaScript. I don't know. Okay. I don't know. Hold on one second. I got to go back here. Well, Anthony Davis said, when Trump leaves, so will the Russia hoax. So will the China hoax. In fact, when Trump leaves, we'll be able to breathe a bit better until he tries to run again in 2020. I don't know. I mean, Biden is a president-elect and Trump is on his way out. And this is a big story about a Russian hack. This doesn't have anything to do with Trump. I'm not really sure what this has to do with Trump. I don't see it stopping anytime soon because I think it's been really effective. Really effective. Like, man, has this worked wonders. Because all you got to do is call somebody a Russian agent or a Russian bot, or, as I was reading yesterday from Caitlin Johnson, your mind has been hacked by Russian propaganda. You only think the way you think because Russians have infiltrated our social media space. That's really effective, man. I don't see how that ends with just Trump because they've seen this be a really good tool to pretty much take out anybody who opposes the establishment, right? Anybody who is putting any kind of pressure on the establishment, they can use. This is one of the tools in the arsenal, Right. While Massey Solar Wind is owned by the Clintons. Yeah. People have already been kind of blowing this whole story up already. They've already been looking into this and they're like, this is a ridiculous story about the Russians, but it's very effective and it's very helpful if you keep the narrative. It's just like the narrative of terrorists. I just want to say this before I go. Do you guys remember the whole narrative about ISIS during the Obama administration? ISIS. Oh my God, ISIS. you know, the whole everything was like, oh, here they come. ISIS is infiltrating our youth. Our, you know, people are joining ISIS camps through the internet, right? Do you guys remember that? It was, I mean, it was such a brainworm for the establishment. And do you remember as soon as Trump, I don't know why this is. I don't know why this happened. But as soon as Trump got into office, the whole ISIS thing just went out. Like, you never heard about ISIS again. Except for one, like 2 or 3 times Trump was like, well, we defeated ISIS. They're gone. They're gone now. Do you remember that? Like, where did the ISIS story go? When Obama left and Trump came in, the ISIS story just like went completely away. And now there's just no ISIS. I haven't seen one ISIS story in 4 years about how ISIS is controlling our minds or controlling our youth, or they're infiltrating all of our, right? So it was just a complete fabrication. ISIS and the story of ISIS was a complete fabrication. And, you know, the Russian scare thing, the new McCarthyism has taken the place, supplanted, you know, terrorism or ISIS or whatever it is that they need to like push into people's brains to make them go, what? I don't know. Help me. Right. So it's just useful. Right. The ISIS beheadings were being uploaded all up. Right. All that stuff. I remember that. Yeah. So it's either ISIS, Russia, China. Exactly. Realize, ISIS, Russia, China. They just, you know, they can just interchange these stories and, you know, scare people and get people. Oh, whatever you guys need to do. I don't know. You need to go to war. That's okay. Thanks for your service, military person. Thank you. Because we were scared of those people, the Russians or the ISIS, China. I don't even remember who it was, really, that we're scared of. But thank you for your service. Anyways. ISIS melted. Right. Million homeless people march. Where is that? Jacob Gordon, is that happening? Oh, by the way, last thing. ISIS melted along with the cryosphere. Indeed. Well, I believe there is a march. I'll find out about it. I think it's January. In January, there's going to be a march on Washington, or a protest for force the vote. I will find that information. I will post it hopefully tomorrow. But anyways, I'll see you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to be talking to Jim Massa, and we're going to be talking about the state of the Arctic and state of the planet in general. And I will see you guys tomorrow. Until next time, peace.